like to welcome Mr. Tony Teo from Arbor Networks to Interpol World Television. Tony,
Hi.
Welcome to Interpol World TV.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So, why did Arbor Networks come to Interpol World?
Wow, I mean, Interpol World, I think is basically very much more on security and enforcer crime, right? So today, I would say crime is everywhere, right? And especially cybercrime is actually one form of crime going out there, right? So definitely cybercrime is one of the key topics which I think the bad guys are moving towards to exploit this area, right? So Arbor as one of the leader in the DDoS space, right, which is also one of the common attack tactics used by cybercrime. So we basically want to take this opportunity to showcase our solution and also to speak to a like-minded audience, right, to share our solution.
So, DDoS is one of the preferred attack methods. What are the threats that you're seeing out there?
So basically, DDoS, let me just give a definition. DDoS actually stands for Distributed Denial of Service, right? So it's a way where hacker basically attack on your availability, right? So with now a lot of organization or even the government organization moving towards online, right? So availability become a very important criteria, right? You want to make sure you have always on service to your customer, right? So what hackers do is they actually use DDoS to actually disrupt the services of your online services, right? And based on, Arbor has been doing this DDoS space for the last 16 years, and based on our continued research, right, DDoS is getting very alive today, and it's actually getting bigger, right? So the last year, the biggest DOS attack that we actually see was a massive 800 gig of a DOS attack, right? So not only that the DOS attack has increased in size, but it also increased in frequency, right? More and more customers are becoming a victim compared to maybe 5 years ago, right? So it's a trend that you cannot really ignore. Say, okay, I will not be DDoS, right? So and then the last thing is not only become bigger, more frequent, it's also becoming more complex, right? So if you are relying on traditional 10-year-old technology to help you to defend against DDoS, chances are you will not have a very effective solution against that itself, right? So, and the other trend we actually see last year, and why DDoS is getting bigger, more frequent, and more complex, right? It's actually what we call the IoT botnet, right? So today, hackers are also utilizing IoT, right? Based on research, we actually see that every day, 5.5 million of IoT video was almost added to the market every day. So hacker today has been using this as to increase their attack surface, right? So with IoT kind of a platform, that allowed the hacker to really do some very nasty stuff, right? So.
And you, in dealing with attacks, I understand that time is the new adversary in advanced attacks. Can you comment on that?
Yes. So in the security world, right, we always think that the hacker is always improving, right? So to me, cybersecurity is like a race. The good guy and the bad guy, right? The good guy is always trying to up the game. The bad guy always find ways to actually break the new defense system, right? So for the past 20 years, a lot of focus has been keeping the hacker out of the internet network. But with hackers getting more and more advanced, and more important, today hackers are backed by very powerful cyber criminal organization, right? And some of them even nation state, right? So they have a lot of resource, right? They no longer are the dropout from school, the teenager, with all this resource behind them. So that there is, I think there's not really rumor, right? Today, if the hacker is very persistent and they have a strong backend resource, they can in fact, and they are persistent enough, they can in fact penetrate any environment that they want. So what's the next step? So today, if we cannot keep the hacker out, because somehow, some way, they will penetrate your network. So if you cannot put all your defense on keeping it out, you have to change the game of rule, right? You have to accept that somehow the hacker is already in your network. And you have to change the tactic to hunt the hacker activity out, right? You need to basically understand your internal network and then basically look into some abnormal behavior. So basically, once you able to hunt out the malicious activity, you can actually stop the propagation and stop the spreading, right? So you basically limit the lifespan of the hacker inside your network. So by limiting the time, basically you limit the activity or you limit the damage, right? So this is why I agree today time is the new advisory because the longer you let the hacker stay on network, they can find more information and they can do more damage, right? So some of the new rule is to use some good technology to quickly hunt out and basically cripple them, fast enough.
But there are more attackers coming. I've seen that you can now get DDoS attacks as a service and buy them on the darknet, and in some cases actually buy them on the internet. How big a threat is that?
So as I explained, the hacker are no longer 20 years ago that we used to know, like a teenager trying to get some frame. Today they have an ecosystem, right? So you're right. Cyber crime activity has moved on to even as a service, right? So today, from the DOS perspective, which we are more familiar, there is also something called a DDoS as a service, right? So that basically kind of up the game. Anyone don't even need to have very deep technical knowledge, right? They can just buy a service and they can launch a DOS attack, right? So what Arbor tried to do is basically I don't think there's any effective solution that we can stop the hacker on using this type of service to launch attack. But what we can do based on our perspective is we want to know the enemy, right? The best defense is to actually know your enemy activity, right? So what Arbor have an ecosystem, we call it as Atlas. So what we do is we gather statistic information from our partner, from service provider, and then today we have the capability to actually analyze up to 140 terabits per second of traffic. In fact, that is almost equivalent to 1/3 of the internet traffic. Right? In security, we always have one saying, right? You cannot protect what you can't see. Right? So if I were to rephrase it, right, I can say the more you see, the more you can protect. So Arbor, what we do is based on this Atlas platform, we look into what's happening in 1/3 of internet traffic. That include the attacks launched from all these DDoS attack service. So once we analyze the traffic, we convert this into what we call actionable intelligence. And then that we actually, of course, share with our customer. We also work very closely with the national level kind of cyber security organization like the CERT, right? And share this intelligence, right? So hopefully by sharing our intelligence, right? And then we can basically have up our game against those hackers, whether they are just launching on their laptop or launching as a service kind of platform.
And are there any other best practices that you would want the Interpol World Television audience to know about how to try and deal and prevent DDoS attacks?
So I would say DDoS today is actually getting very challenging, right? DDoS today is no longer what we know 20 years ago, right? As I say, DDoS today is becoming, as I say, bigger, more frequent, most important is more complex, right? So within Arbor, what we actually recommend as a best practice is what we call a multi-layer integrated solution, right? In fact, DDoS is a complex problem. You have to look at DDoS at protection at different angles. So within our multi-layer integrated solution, we started with what we call on-premise protection that actually provide a very good local protection for your data center. But what if the DDoS attack become so overwhelmed that your on-premise device cannot handle? Then we have to leverage on what we call a DDoS cloud-based service to actually help to offload the big vulnerability attack, right? So basically with an on-premise and a cloud-based solution, this is where we think is the best practice that it has been proven successfully, that it helps our customer in defending a lot of DDoS attack. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there's some state-sponsored DDoS attacks that we think have happened. Do you think that there should be more international regulation controlling what states should be allowed to do and not allowed to do in cyberspace?
So definitely that's a good suggestion, but personally I think this is also the challenge, right? One of the loophole where hacker exploiting is because of this cross-national boundary, right? So although there are some partnership going on, but definitely if there are more integrated partnership, information sharing, as I say, based on Atlas, we can actually make the hacker life a bit harder, right? But I think today this is something that we're still developing. Hopefully in the near future, we does have very good corporate system, and if that really reach that stage, I think we will give the hacker a hard time.
Yes, and I think that's one of the themes that's coming out from the Interpol World Congress, where they're discussing the broader cyber threat. Yeah. Tony, it's been a real pleasure talking to you and finding out more about Arbor networks. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you very much, William. Thank you.
Thank you.